Hello and welcome to week 13 of On the Water Striper Migration Reports. Hot summer conditions have finally caught up to us, and while stripers are still on the move in their northern range, the migration is beginning to wind down in points south of Boston. That's not to say some areas of southern New England won't see a new body or two of fish trickle in, but most of the big fish movement is happening from Boston to Maine. That said, the June new moon is coming late on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, depending on how you look at it, and striped bass anglers from Long Island Sound to Vacation Land are going to be out taking their shots at a big one. We've got just one guest reporter this week in addition to our weekly input from Canyon Runner, but before we hear from him, let's jump into our coastal rundown. In Maryland, the striper bite has waned with rising air and water temperatures, and while there still may be bass lingering around Ocean City Inlet, as well as those coastal bays and marshes, the fish are few and far between. The best opportunities for bass will be on the incoming tides around the new moon, when there's a significant rush of cooler water, ocean water that is, running through the inlet and into the adjacent backwaters. The surf should also continue to hold some slot and underslot fish well into the summer months. Meanwhile, up inside the bay, resident stripers are being caught around river mouths during the early morning and evening hours. According to Alex Perez, an on-the-water columnist and fishing manager at Angler Sports Center down in Annapolis, 5-inch topwater plugs, paddle tails on jigs, and live line spot are responsible for most of the catching right now. Just up the coast in southern New Jersey, the striper bite in the summer surf has fallen off a bit for anglers pitching out sand fleas and clams into the wash, which is likely a result of some hotter weather lately, but it's still the best bet for a bent rod. That said, there are a few fish kicking around in the back bays where they're being caught on small top waters, soft plastics, and fly patterns worked lower in the water column around sod banks, channel edges, and bridge pilings. Captain Brian Williams of Badfish Charters in Ocean City, New Jersey, reported fish to around 29 inches in bay waters last week. The fish in the surf are generally of the same class, right around slot size, some a few over slot. And not much changes as we head up the coast to northern New Jersey, where the surf bite has been a little bit more consistent for anglers throwing sand fleas and calico crabs in the wash. While the weather has improved as of late, better bass fishing was happening amid fog and cold rain last week when stripers had more comfortable feeding conditions. There were fish to around slot size reported in some of the larger river systems in North Jersey, and bass from the upper 20 to mid 30-inch range caught tight to shore along the beaches. We can reasonably expect that aside from a few small resident fish, the rivers will mostly clear out leading up to July. Over in New York, the western south shore of Long Island is a continuation of the North Jersey bite with the best action concentrated in the surf. Anglers throwing topwater plugs and surface swimming metal lips have found success during the early mornings and night tides with some overslot fish up to around 15 pounds. There are also schoolie to slot-sized bass in the back bays and marshes, but timing is everything this time of year. An incoming tide and even the early ebb will produce the best chances for some summer backwater action. Up in western Long Island Sound, anglers are enjoying what is likely the last wave of migratory fish coming out of the Hudson. We know they stuck around up there for quite a while, as captains like Chris Oliver of Keeping It Real Sport Fishing in Poughkeepsie reported plenty of overslot fish in the river up until about 2 weeks ago. Hopefully their late exit is a sign of a long, prosperous spawning season. There are big fish from 20 to 30 pounds plus pushing east, and anglers like On the Water's Jack Larizada are finding them on the bottom in 30 to 45 feet of water. That action continues as we head east from New York City waters toward the central and eastern sound. The only difference is the bass are more readily available across a wider range of depths as we get closer to the mouth of the sound, and there's a greater variety of bait fish for them to feed on. Captain Dave Flanagan of North Island Fly in Smithtown reported bass to 45 inches pushing bunker, hickory shad, butterfish, and some squid to the surface over the past week. Anglers are finding similar action all the way out to Orient Point and in the rips of the eastern sound. With quite a few fish still hanging back in the western sound, the eastern sound remains a great place to be as we head into the new moon. At this rate, it seems like there will continue to be great fishing out there into early July when the bass will begin to settle into places like the Race, Plum Gut, and Sluiceway. And we already know they're there. They're just going to, stick around for a while until probably around, I'd say early August when they begin to, move out and head back south. Let's not get ahead of ourselves there, though. Back on the south shore of Long Island, it's been a tough pick for surf anglers on the east end. The inlets and adjacent beaches are producing fish, but according to the folks at Whitewater Outfitters in Hampton Bays, it's certainly not red hot. There are some bass in the 10 to 20 pound range sitting outside a casting range at Montauk Point, so the boats have been doing well. But according to surfcaster Brandon Sauciel, even the fishermen swimming to the outer rocks are unable to reach them lately. It seems like the better shots for surfcasters right now remains on the North Fork, while boat anglers continue to flock to the rips where mixed classes of bass continue to feed on butterfish and threadfin herring. That's a more recent arrival, it seems like, in the rips of the Eastern Sound there. Connecticut waters continue to produce large bass from west to east as what appears to be the final wave of Hudson River bass entered the Sound last week. According to Fisherman's World in Norwalk, Connecticut, fish from 15 to 30 pounds plus have been chasing schools of bunker around the islands in the Western Sound, and they're being caught on big paddle tails, bucktail jigs, and topwater plugs, which is consistent with Jack Larizada's report of large bass in the far Western Sound. Deep reefs are still holding fish as well, so when the bass aren't pushing bait on or near the surface, bouncing around to different pieces of reef structure is a reliable option. Flutter spoons, diamond jigs, and three-weight plastics, bucktails, and live or chunked bunker are all working well. We're starting to see that chunk bite develop in the Sound with a little bit more bunker in there this week. Further east, anglers and the bass they're pursuing are enjoying the recent influx of bunker like we just mentioned, and while they're not in vast schools, finding pockets of bunker with active fish has been the name of the game. Of course, boat anglers in the easternmost reaches of Connecticut are also getting in on the action in the rips of the Eastern Sound. In Rhode Island, we're seeing a continuation of Long Island Sound patterns with fish transitioning to deeper reef structure off Newport. Surfcasters throwing darters, metal lips, and needlefish from the rocks are pulling in some nice bass after dark with a bit more consistency as bass continue to drop out of the bay. However, according to the Saltwater Edge in Middletown, Rhode Island, there are still some overslot fish patrolling the upper bay. Captain Connor McLeod of Tall Tales Charters, who chimed in for last week's report, has been focused on fishing out front and mentioned that there's been a lack of slot-sized fish lately, but plenty of bass in that 20 to 40-pound range. He's anticipating the back of the new moon to bring in their last wave of migratory bass, which will most likely be a result of fish sliding out of the Eastern Sound to take up summer residence on the reefs and rock piles off Block Island. And speaking of Block Island, the bass bite there has been phenomenal for fish in excess of 40 pounds when conditions have allowed boats to make the run, that is, and live eels are doing the heavy lifting. In Massachusetts, Buzzards Bay continues to be a revolving door of striper activity as fish head for the canal. Some upper bay harbors along the south coast and Cape Cod hosted staging stripers up to approximately 40 inches, and there were a few Chesapeake cows pushing 50 inches in the mix. Captain Jason Colby of Little Sister Charters put longtime on-the-water contributor Ron Powers, writes our Massachusetts fishing reports, onto a fast and furious harbor bite last week. They caught bass after bass from 31 to 41 inches while tied up to a wharf as the skipper filleted sea bass and scup. There have also been scattered schools of bunker in Upper Buzzards Bay, and if you can locate them and secure a few fresh baits, you stand to catch some really solid fish. Down on the south side of Cape Cod, fishing in the rips of Vineyard Sound has slowed a bit as the squid have thinned out, but according to Captain Ben Sussman of In the Net Sport Fishing out of Osterville, there are bass from the slot to mid-30-inch range lingering out there. The Elizabeth Islands are seeing better fish come in on live eels, and that's another summer hotspot where stripers will take up temporary residence. Heading east, Nantucket Sound is fishing well for mixed classes of bass in the rips off Monomoy Island, but there has been a ton of fishing pressure down there lately. Anglers who take the time to locate fish away from the fleet, like Captain Drew Downing of Down East Charters in Chatham, are finding more active bass feeding on a mix of bait after nearly a week of east winds finally settled down. Squid and sand eels are on the top of the menu, and both tides have been productive. Plus, as stripers continue to cycle through those rips, the backside beaches of the Outer Cape have seen improved but spotty fishing on the night tides. Schools of stripers ranging from mid-20-inch to about the mid-40-inch range have been caught in the ocean surf over the past week, and that bite should continue as these upcoming new moon tides cue the fish to continue north. Those stiff east winds last week also ignited the surf bite for anglers plying the beaches of Nantucket as sand eels were pressed up tight to shore along Great Point. Albie Snacks, Bomber Plugs, and Island X Hellfires were catching slot-sized fish and over. On the eastern side of the island, according to surfcaster Rick Ramos, who writes Nantucket Fishing Report for us, slot-sized fish have also become more abundant, and bucktail jigs in the 3 to 4 ounce range are producing the best results out there. Up in eastern Cape Cod Bay, there are stripers approaching the 40-pound mark, according to Real Deal Charters in Truro and Sportsport Bait and Tackle in Hyannis. Again, the bass are on a mix of sand eels and squid up there. White and amber-colored poppers, as well as walk-the-dog-style topwaters, have been the go-to offerings from Race Point down to Billingsgate Shoal. Further west along the south shore of Massachusetts, bass to 20 pounds and up have been feeding on mackerel, and after dark, live eels are convincing them to chew. The river mouths south of Boston are also producing some steady action on a slightly smaller class of fish right around the slot to upper teen class. Big soft plastics and glide baits are working well for shore anglers throwing artificials, while bait fishermen are catching on chunked mackerel and seaworms. According to Captain Brian Coombs of Get Tight Sport Fishing in Boston, the harbor has been a hotbed of activity as schools of big bass move in from the ocean to feed on good numbers of mackerel and sea herring. Anglers who prefer to skip the live bait pickup are finding steady action trolling tube and worm rigs and mojo rigs around the islands, or focusing on the few remaining runs of dropback river herring by casting large walk-the-dog plugs or dropping down flutter spoons. There are still a few bunker schools kicking around in the bays south of Boston, too. Up on the north shore of Massachusetts, big bass are settling in among the rocky shorelines and harbors, and bunker and mackerel are what's for dinner. There are some nice bass being taken on the rock ledges of Cape Ann and deep into Gloucester Harbor on live eels and their soft plastic copycats. Just north of there, near the mouth of the Merrimack River, big bass continue to pick off fallback river herring, and anglers are catching on a wide range of artificial and natural baits, from XL topwaters and minnow plugs to dunked seaworms. Off the beaches of Plum Island, schools of small sea herring, along with sand eels and mackerel, are keeping those bass satiated as they drop out of the river and hit the ocean. Along the coast of New Hampshire, things are setting up nicely leading up to the new moon. The river mouths have fish up to the upper 40-inch range being caught on drifted mackerel, and with more mackerel showing up closer to home with each passing day, along with a decent presence of bunker, New Hampshire surfcasters and boaters are anticipating a solid push of big bass from the north shore of Massachusetts. On the water, striper migration reports are brought to you by Grundens. The Grundens brand was born almost 100 years ago in the small fishing village of Grundens, Sweden, when Carl A. Grunden began making waterproof oilskins to protect fishermen from the harsh conditions of the North Sea. Today, Grundens continues to bring that same level of quality and care to their extensive line of technical apparel for commercial and recreational fishermen. I've been fishing in Grundens Bedrock wading boots and Vector zip stocking foot waders, as well as the Portal Gore-Tex wading jacket. I actually had it on in the rain last night. Water beads up, rolls right off the jacket. It's great. It's kept me safe, it's kept me dry, kept me comfortable, no matter the conditions. I'm really looking forward to breaking them in as the striper season gets underway. The Gore-Tex Portal wading jacket is packed with waterproof features like neoprene sleeve cuffs, a drop hood with a high collar that shields me from harsh winds and pelting rain, and it is specifically designed to perform in cold weather and deep wading situations, so I can keep casting the stripers through the elements from early spring through late fall. There's truly no better fit for a Northeast surfcaster. Check out all their wading gear and more at Grundens.com. Grundens, we are fishing. Our guest this week provides an in-depth rundown of striper fishing in Maine as of late, so I'll let him take it away. Here's on-the-water contributing writer Captain Lou Tirado of Diamond Pass Outfitters in Portland, Maine.
Captain Lou of Diamond Pass Outfitters, thanks for having me again. Always look forward to our chats. Yeah, man, like we talked about briefly over the phone, things are going okay up here. You know, the week before Father's Day was really good. We got a lot of good fish in our rivers. Seemed like everybody was catching fish in the 15 to 20 pound range, are really common. You know, that's where you're getting a few of them a day. And then the 8 to 12 pounders were kind of what we were seeing. So that's fish, you know, 26 inches up to 44 is kind of what I was seeing on the boat with my customers. Primary bait, still herring and alewives in the river systems. We're starting to see a lot of sand eels out front on the sand flats. And then obviously we still got the green crabs and shrimp up on the grass as well and in the flats. Starting to see some mackerel show up with more regularity, but not quite where it should be. But I'm guessing that east wind that you guys had, that you shared with us, kind of put a halt on that. But we got some good weather coming in, some southwest winds, high temps, 90s to high 90s. So that should push things along and push those fish that were offshore, all that bait that's offshore right now, right into our waters for us. As far as what we're throwing, I'm trying to keep it simple for everybody. Like I said, we're kind of grinding right now, so going with things that we know are going to work. As far as the soft plastics, I like throwing these Albi Snack XLs, especially in this like olive tan color. The watercolor that we have, this one just seems to work really well. Also throwing the gravity tackles, 9-inch ones. If I want something a little longer, a little more slender, it's got a little more action in the tail. And then low light, first thing in the morning, the old GT paddles here, the bigger ones in this darker color here. I'm loving it. As the sun comes up and we start seeing some more surface activity or fish that are showing themselves, throwing spooks like this here. This is a NorCal custom nuke spook. Throwing these, hydro pencils, some of the 2-light tackle ones as well. But in this 5-inch range here, it works pretty well. Obviously, the dock, if we get guys that can do it, you know, it takes a little more skill, a little more patience. but throwing this dock is bringing the fish up from the deeper rips that are holding on bottom. We're pulling fish up from 25, 30 feet down and getting them to blast this. If we're looking to cover some more water, some more territory, I like throwing the pencils. It's a little more work, but this one from Guppy is actually pretty easy to work. Cast like a missile, so we can really cover a lot of territory with that. Yeah, it makes a good little splash. These guys seem to like it. As far as the flies going, if we're fishing around the bait fish that we have, I like these little, just simple bait fish patterns. This is a looks better when wet is the name of this pattern. Just a brush fly with a few hackles. Doesn't hold any water, makes it easy, good profile, pushes a bunch of water. They seem to like it. And then we move up to the flats or some shallower stuff. We're throwing crabs. This one here is a Webster's Tactical Crab. It's got the tungsten beads on the belly to keep it right down, get it down nice and low. Short puffs of sand. The bass love it. They crush them. And then if I'm up around the marsh or some grass banks in the back bays, this here is it's a mud dog from Mike that he makes these. Just a little shrimp imitation. But yeah, I think the next couple weeks, we're going to see the fish start dropping out of the rivers, right around July. Those temps are going to start warming up. The herring run will be all but over. So we'll start seeing fish take up residence on the beaches, our ledges. I know guys are getting some good fish at night out front. And as the mackerel start moving in, we'll see more and more of that.
On the Water Striper migration reports are also brought to you by Quantum. Stripers are back, and so is Quantum with their new Benchmark and Strive spinning reels. I had a chance to fish the surf with the Benchmark 6000 during the fall striper migration last year, and it is a true workhorse. Performs great in all kinds of surf, but especially in that heavy, rough surf that you get during the fall run and even during the early spring when all those storm systems are moving through. The 6,000 size Quantum Benchmark boasts 35 pounds of fish-stopping drag power, and like all Benchmark models, it is highly resistant to heavy water pressure and sand or salt intrusion, which makes it a great choice for fishing big surf. The Strive 3000 spinning combo, which includes the same water-resistant qualities, was a top performer from the kayak and boat when stripers and bluefish fed alongside schools of large bonito last fall. The fully sealed Strive spinning reel is complemented by a sensitive but durable graphite composite rod with a stainless steel guide train, so I can focus on fighting fish with confidence instead of worrying about chipped, scratched, or corroded guides. To learn more about how Quantum is setting the new standard in saltwater fishing, check out quantumfishing.com. Quantum, tested beyond limits. Big thank you to Captain Lou Tirado for the update. It sounds like there are plenty of fish from the mid-20 to mid-40 inch range in southern Maine, with river herring, grass shrimp, green crabs, and more in the marsh waters and rivers, and sand eels and mackerel becoming increasingly abundant out front. There's good fishing to be had from the backwaters to the bays and oceanfront in Maine. Look ahead to the new moon for another push of big bass in southern Maine, and if you're looking for a bass charter in vacation land during your summer vacation, Lou is your guy. Now let's kick it over to Canyon Runner for a coast-wide look at the migration and fishing activity this week. Canyon Runner is doing a 1-month free trial for their Inshore mapping system. If you want to take advantage of this exciting offer, email info@canyonrunner.com for more details. The Canyon Runner virtual captain and tracking map is coming soon to inshore anglers chasing stripers and all other inshore species for as low as $99 a year. It serves as your co-captain, providing weather, water temperature, and safety information with a built-in warning system and so much more. Gain the ability to track each and every member and pro staff boat in real time on one page, one map, one website, one helm. Know where the fleet is at all times and extend your network of buddy boats in real time. Learn more at www.canyonrunner.com. Take it away, guys.
All right, Matt, welcome to another week. We're last week of June, we're rolling into. This is covering action from really the third week on till about the 23rd, folks. And really what we're covering is just a huge change in weather. We are in the summer weather pattern. If we just look at the Boston weather, look at that. We know what it's been like the last 3 days. Look at the next three. This has basically heated everything up where water temperature is really not much of an issue at all anymore, but we'll show it. But let's just look at the big weather pattern. What's happening? We've got just a week worth of great weather. What we have is just watch this high, watch that high, and then there's another high. We always, as we talked about from 2 months now, look at the big picture. They're really good at forecasting big weather patterns like hurricanes. They're actually good at it. big high pressure systems. As we just look at the whole week, big highs over Canada, big highs down here off the Carolinas, big high off the coast. Just a week's worth of really good weather for most. Yes, we're talking a mid range towards the end of the week. We are going to see some east come in. We're going to have to work around. But for the most part, these highs are going to make for some good weather. What that hot temperature did, folks, is this. Look at the water temperature down here off of New Jersey, it's 70 degrees now. Off of northern New Jersey, Long Island, at half of Long Island, it's in the mid 60s. It's going to be 70 degrees soon in Montauk, and you'll see what's going on here now that it's in the 65 range. It's kind of when the bass start to turn off. Up in these bays, it's 65, and it's really warming up inside the bays and rivers. Cape Cod Bay, look at it. Zoom into Plymouth. Look at the temperatures. Look where we're getting now as we move north again. We get to more comfortable bass, and in here it's still not warmed up yet. We're getting to some more comfortable bass temperatures, which really 55 to just before you hit 65. And you can see, this is where a lot of the focus is up here. This is one of our pro staff, the 4Cs. I spent a few days up here right outside of the river, right in the mouth, just outstanding fishing. And as you go up the coast with this temperature, as long as you're going to stay close to 60, high 50s, all the way up the line, all the way, look, almost look where we are. It's 58 here. I mean, basically all the way up the line, you're going to see decent enough weather to hold, and we're seeing bass. There's bass all in this area. There's bass coming out of every mouth. You put in your effort, you stay in these areas, you're going to have it. Drifting in the deep with pogies and stuff like that, not really as productive as getting up here in the creeks. I mean, look, we talk about where the bass are, quote, up in the mouths of all. You can see some activity here by one of our members, all inside Boston Harbor, back up in this area, down into Plymouth. There's bass everywhere. Here's one of the crews off of one of our members' boats is fishing right behind their house in P-Town, and at high tide, the water comes up basically to the back of the porch, catching bass off the back of the porch. So they're all up in here area. Now, as we see there's bass up in here, but as we see these temperatures warm up, you're going to see the fish just keep moving north. And look, you could see you could see all the activity here. You could see everyone. It's all the same thing, guys. We're not at the point where there's no like special bite, no secret. You don't have to be there at night. It's not an eel fish. It's just there's fish everywhere. But as these temperatures warm up, the big take from this week is it's going to slow up. And we've kind of seen it over here. I'm going to take the members off the map here for a second because we have so many people fishing. So I want to show you what the two pro staff boats have. Now, Rigid Fishing, he's fishing up here with some of his customers. They're doing some commercial bass fishing. There's big trophy bass all in these areas. We're talking 50-pounders, multiple fish still. We talked about that for a couple of weeks. But what we're finally seeing is it's not good every tide. At one point, the ebb tide, the flood tide, it was good on both tides. It was good day, night, anything. Now we're starting to see it slow down. It's not good every tide. It's not good every day. They're still there. It's kind of the only game in town if you want some consistent fishing. Everywhere else, particularly as you go further west, it's basically now, okay, we're the fluke. All right, I can see the sea bass season's kind of over, but where are the fluke? Bluefish. I mean, we had some guys talking about cobia today because look at the water temperatures. And they're going to start to see cobia up in here. And that's what we're going to be looking at because it's just too warm now. And it really slowed up. And unfortunately, the sum of all this fishing from basically west of Montauk down the coast in the ocean was a very, very disappointing season. There are, though, up in here, there are we call them the Sharpies, the guy who dedicates their lives to bass fishing the entire season. Nighttime fishing under the bridges, live eels. Yeah, you'll pick away all season long. But it's nothing like it should be out in the ocean. That's where the brunt of the most people are targeting. There's only a handful of people who still do that nighttime bridge fishing with live eels and stuff like that. And so it was a pretty disappointing season down here for most of the folks that really just stick to the ocean. And it's going to be another week maybe, and it's going to be over here. If you looked at the map from last week, maybe we can just scroll through this and look at your water temperatures, and you can see what happened. You can see how quickly here's Friday. Look at that. Wednesday, we were 64, 65, right? You scroll back a little bit more and you get same thing. But now you pull it to where we are right now. This was this Sunday, and look at the temperature. And that was from the heat we saw. And it's gonna happen all the way up the line, and it's gonna start to slow down as it warms up more and more. Maybe we get a little bit extra fishing up this way because it hasn't really gotten that warm yet, but it's any day now where really everyone's going to rotate, and you're going to see the boats all up here just putting away the bass gear and just focused on tuna. But for many, it was one of the best bass seasons that they've seen, particularly arguably one of the best ever around here. And it's really coming together. I mean, there's been bass here for now 3 or 4 weeks. It's coming together right here for you folks too. So good luck this week. Stay with it. Stay cool the next few days. And we'll talk to you next week, folks. Thanks a lot. Take care.
On the Water's striper migration reports are also brought to you by Garmin Marine. Whether you're setting up to hold position on a rip line or inching your way toward a boulder-strewn beach, Garmin's force crack and trolling motor is up to the task in any saltwater environment. With autopilot features like anchor lock, cruise control, and route following, which can all be controlled via wireless remote, this bow-mounted trolling motor is built to help you make the most of your inshore fishing trips, regardless of the conditions. The force crack and trolling motor is available in a range of shaft lengths from 48 to 90 inches for bay boats, center consoles, down east style hulls, and more. Learn more about the force crack and trolling motor and everything Garmin Marine has to offer at www.garmin.com. Garmin, engineered on the inside for life on the outside. All right, thank you, Canyon Runner, for yet another spot-on summary of this week's striper action. As mentioned last week, we're seeing the last of the Hudson fish pushing into the Western Sound, and my guess is that once the new moon passes, we'll see those bass continue to head for the summer holding grounds. The mouth of the Long Island Sound and the islands peppering the coast up to Cape Cod are popular haunts for big bass, and early summer patterns are already taking hold in those areas. As we look ahead to the days following June's new moon, keep an eye out for lots of fish movement in places like the Eastern Sound, coastal Rhode Island, Buzzards Bay, and the Cape Cod Canal, the Outer Cape beaches, and the remainder of the Striper Coast from Boston to Maine. It's not over yet, but there's more hot weather ahead, and sooner or later, the migration train is going to come to a halt. We've got a couple more migration reports before we wrap up the spring run. Then Jimmy Fee and Anthony DeCicci will be bringing you weekly updates on the Northeast offshore fisheries. Remember, you can still sign up for On the Water Striper Cup until mid-September and win weekly prizes from Yeti, Bubba, Penn, Costa, or Turtlebox Audio just for catching and submitting your photos and measurements online. We'll even be raffling off a Robalo R200 to one lucky Striper Cup member at Striper Fest this September. I believe it's last week of September. Learn more or sign up for the tournament by visiting stripercup.com. For more migration updates, follow On the Water Magazine on Instagram, and whatever you do, don't miss this moon. Sleep can wait. Just get out and give it your all this week.